Since 2000, Chinese exports to Africa have outgrown U.S. exports to Africa by a ratio of more than 3 to 1. It's not just China. Europeans, Indians, they all have a plan for Africa. America does not. So who cares? It's the dark continent, right? It's a continent that is perhaps growing in South Africa, but in virtually sub-Saharan Africa shouldn't really be looked at, right? No, not right at all. If that was ever the case, it's not the case today. In the last decade, 6 of the world's fastest growing economies were located in sub-Saharan Africa. In the next 5 years, it is expected that 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies will be in sub-Saharan Africa. There are already more middle-class consumers in Africa than there are in India. By the year 2060, it's expected that Africa will be home to 1.1 billion middle-class consumers. African markets are the markets of the future. Our bill is modest, and it's based, I hope, on common sense. It doesn't add to our deficit, which is why Chris and I come together. In fact, it will earn money for the United States taxpayers while creating jobs for our workers. The goal of the bill is simple. We seek to create good jobs for American workers by increasing American exports to Africa by 200% in real dollars over the next decade. We're calling for comprehensive American help to help American companies, especially small businesses, to compete in Africa. As part of the plan, a special Africa exports coordinator would work to make sure that all government agencies involved in trade, finance, and promotion are on the same page. When I brought in many of these agencies to my office that should be coordinating efforts, I found out that precious few were. That includes, among others, the U.S. Department of Commerce and State, the Small Business Administration, the Export-Import Bank, and the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. We also give the Export-Import Bank greater incentive to counter aggressive concessional loans, the below-market loans that nations such as China often use, as I mentioned earlier. Our goal is not to make government bigger, but to make government work better. And it's important to point out, we not only want to see strong U.S. exports to Africa, but continued economic growth for our African partners as well. I am co-sponsoring companion legislation, which is going to open opportunities for Africa in the United States. It is a two-way street. It has to be. Given a fair chance, American workers, I believe, can outcompete any workers anywhere in the world. We know it. But every year that we ignore Africa, China becomes more entrenched in the economies of that continent, and it becomes more difficult for Americans to compete. That is why we need to act now.